There have been a lot of updates since the European Commission behind closed doors hearing and also the little press conference that they did afterwards from Activision representatives, from Brad Smith, who went to do interviews with Bloomberg. We've gotten some insight about what happened behind that closed door meeting and what that picture looked like with 100 lawyers in the room. Let's go through everything that we've learned over the last 24 hours right now. So first things first, let's start with a post from Itis over at Reset Era. Posting from MLex, he says, the deal with Nintendo and Nvidia show Microsoft's commitment to build a cross-platform future and that it's comfortable entering into private agreements, according to Brad Smith. Brad Smith believes that the CMA left the door open to behavioral remedies. I also don't think the CMA completely shut the door to behavioral remedies. They left the door open at least a bit. I hope the CMA will look through that door and see this opportunity to bring this game to 150 million people. Brad Smith about Sony. We sent an offer to Sony 2 days before Christmas. I am ready to sign it anytime. He also said that Microsoft will be willing to hold future talks if Sony doesn't like the current offer. For the 10-year offers for Nvidia and Nintendo, Brad Smith said that most of these deals end up getting renewed beyond the initial time limit if they're a success. And Brad Smith believes now that Nvidia also supports the deal, there is an increasingly stark decision to be made by regulators around the world. I'm going to pause there for a second because really, I agree with him on that front. Now we have so much support for this deal going through, and just people saying they either are neutral about it and don't really mind, or they outright support it. It's kind of leaving Sony and Google on an island all by themselves with the regulators. So when everybody else is saying that the deal is fine and they don't see any concerns, it's a little surprising to see that Sony and Google are on the side of the regulators, and it probably doesn't make the regulators look that good. As a matter of fact, one thing surprised me, and it was a surprise to me, maybe it won't be a surprise to you, but Tencent actually came out and said, we support the Activision merger. Two Chinese game companies, including Tencent, the largest gaming firm on the planet, have expressed private approval of the Microsoft Activision Blizzard merger. Now, this is from Seeking Alpha. Microsoft and Activision may have secured an important overseas ally in their proposed merger. According to private market analyst firm Deal Reporter via Seeking Alpha, Chinese games juggernaut Tencent is in favor of the merger. Tencent is the global king of gaming with over 32 billion revenues earned from dedicated and mobile games in 2021. These figures indicate that Tencent makes up nearly 17% of total global gaming market revenues for 2021. Tencent is a massive company in China, and they are just huge, and they're going to be doing a lot of purchasing themselves. So a lot of people said, of course, they're going to support the merger. But not everybody in China does. There are some companies who have wished to remain anonymous, who have said they have expressed concerns. We know of one third party in China who has expressed concerns. And over on Tweaktown, let's see what else is said. Tencent isn't the only overseas industry group to approve of the merger. Deal Reporter notes that another third-party Chinese games company agrees with the merger, but the identity of the firm remains unknown. One major Chinese player include NetEase, a service-first provider, and MiHoYo, who operates the popular Genshin Impact. Now, I have to imagine that MiHoYo would be more likely to be in favor, and I would say that NetEase is the one that is against it if I was just going off of Chinese companies, because they have talked about how the big jerk sort of ruined their World of Warcraft deal. I believe that was with NetEase. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, that's where that sort of laying everything out. That's sort of where the basic stuff happened. Continuing on with what was said here, they said April 11th for the EC is the next date, although likely to be delayed now that remedy talk will start. April 26th for the CMA. If remedies are accepted, the implementation stage will start, and then you add 2 to 4 months. If the CMA and EC approve it, then you have to deal with the FTC one way or another. That could still go to trial. So today was an important day, but we are still 2 months away from the end at least. And sorry to add to the flood. That must be your notifications. But if Microsoft gets an agreement with the EU, with all concessions in place, would that have the potential to influence the CMA and their willingness to accept the same or similar behavioral remedies? I would guess so, but in recent times, the CMA has rejected at least once the same remedies accepted by the EC, and there have been divergences regarding remedies in other cases between both regulators, etc. So nothing's a done deal, but Microsoft feels very confident. And one thing Microsoft has made very clear, they are not interested in a divestiture. And that was one of the main things that we talked about on this channel, that Itis talked about from Reset Era, saying he thinks that that would be the best way forward. And Microsoft just saying, no, we won't move this deal forward if Activision has to be separated from Activision Blizzard or Call of Duty has to be removed. It's a total package or nothing at all. So if the deal falls apart or runs into headwinds, so to speak, and all of these people that are like, yeah, we're fine with 10-year contracts with Call of Duty. Call of Duty's been brought to 150 million new devices, I believe, is what they said. 150 something number. But anyway, a lot of new devices, and people are really happy about that. So it's going to be interesting to see what transpires. I have a lot more notes to get to, but before I do, half of you are not subscribed right now. The channel has been blowing up. We are about to come into the last 1,000 subscribers. So if you could hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, help me get to 100,000 subscribers. Half of you aren't subscribed. If you all subscribe today, I would hit the goal today. Now, yesterday, we heard them say, we're more willing, given our strategy, to address the concerns that others have, whether it's by contracts, like we did with Nintendo this morning, or whether it's by regulatory undertakings, as we've consistently been open to addressing, said Smith in a meeting attended by Bloomberg. There were some other quotes in the Bloomberg articles. Let's start by reading this one. Microsoft recently received the EU regulators' initial findings in a so-called statement of objections, or SO, laying out the bloc's key concerns about the deal, according to people familiar with the review. Together with the EU hearing, which included Activision Chief Executive Officer Bobby Kotick, Nvidia, as well as about 100 lawyers, officials and critics, Sony, and Alphabet Inc., Google, the statement of objections will set the path for Microsoft to submit formal remedies in the coming weeks. So Microsoft will be submitting some sort of remedy proposal, and we will see what happens from that point forward. Continuing on with Bloomberg, we don't think it's feasible or realistic to think that one game or one slice of this company can be carved out and separated from the rest. And that's me saying, no, that's them saying, no, we're not going to divest. Like, that is just not an option for them. There's no point in them acquiring the company if they have to carve it all up. And honestly, I don't think that would be the best thing for the company or the workers. That'd be a really, really messy situation for all people involved. Global regulators have a choice: block the deal or let the future go forward with behavioral guardrails and remedies and bring this title to 150 million more people. It was 150 million more. I was right off the top of my head. So yeah, it's about keeping the status quo, as they have said multiple times, or expanding the reach of Call of Duty to more devices than it ever has seen before. So Call of Duty being the central focus, the central complaint, has been a very strange sticking point that, you know, Sony has decided to sort of die on that hill and not sign any contracts because it's better for them if everything is tied up with the lawyers, so to speak. Separate, we heard from Lulu Cheng Maservi, who is the EVP of Corporate Affairs and CCO over at Activision Blizzard, and she tweeted the following. She said, Microsoft is doing exactly what they said they do, whereas Sony continues to rebuff the opportunity to get a long-term agreement for Call of Duty and is trying to undermine the deal to protect its 2-decade dominance in gaming. And she's not wrong. Sony is winning. Sony makes great games. Sony has done a lot to land that foothold and hold on to it. They're doing excellent things with the Last of Us television show right now. They're clearly the market leader. So anybody who's concerned about Microsoft doing damage to Sony by acquiring a company, I agree. I think that's ridiculous. And I think most people feel that way. There are a few people really passionate about protecting Sony. I'm not too worried about protecting the billion-dollar company that is the #1 gaming company in the world. I'm sure they're going to be just fine. And I think that's the argument that Microsoft has been making. Lulu continues, we're confident regulators will find that our proposed merger will promote competition and create more opportunities for workers and better games for our players. There's no indication that the quality is going to be reduced in any manner, and she made sort of a snarky tweet about that. So let me just show you that. Sony refuses to accept guaranteed long-term access to COD. What if we lose access to COD? She's just pointing out how ridiculous their argument is. They have a contract in their hand ready to sign, and they don't want to sign it. It's a very strange sort of place to plant your flag in the ground. There was another video from CNBC. Basically, Brad Smith feels like it's a good news day after that hearing where they made the deal with Nvidia, and they further solidified their partnership with Nintendo and Valve. And just think about that when you think about the gaming sphere. So Microsoft has Nintendo on their side. They have Nvidia on their side. They have Valve on their side. EA, I believe, is neutral. Like, who's against it? Google and Sony. Google, like, they have a monopoly on search engines, and Sony, who is the market leader. So, of course, Sony's going to be against it, and Google would be against it, but I don't feel like, I don't know. It would be like, I can't think of an app comparison. It would be like me partnering with somebody and worrying about who's the biggest YouTuber, what negative impact that could have on PewDiePie or whoever the current big person is on YouTube, right? It's a little ridiculous, isn't it? It would be like me acquiring or partnering with, I can't think of like a huge influencer, Pokimane. Like, I partner with Pokimane, and then somebody, I'm going off on a tangent here, and then somebody comes in and says, well, what about the damage you're going to do to PewDiePie? Look, I don't know current influencers. I'm a dad most of the time. And then I read about the Activision Blizzard merger and play Metal Gear Solid 3 in my spare time. But I did my best with an analogy there, and that's why it comes off weird to me. Hey, if you like weird analogies, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, especially if you're one of the 50% of people who aren't subscribed. I'm really close to 100,000 subscribers, and if you hit subscribe today, honestly, I'd hit it today. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to the members for supporting this channel. I really do appreciate you. If you don't like the ads on these videos, click that join button, because I post all these with 0 ads. Thank you so much. I'm going to get out of here. Check out yesterday's video. It was really good. A lot of good info there about the fallout, and we're going to keep covering this because every day, like, a new thing seems to be happening. Thank you so much for watching. I'll get out of here, and I'll catch you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.